And welcome to Sass Bites. This is your weekly bite of Sass during your lunch break. And I'm your host, Micah Godbolt, playing with some transitions here with Wirecast. You can do things like this, where you have a page that has an image on it. You can even do videos and stuff. So I have music. I want to put a video together. You're going to have a music intro one of these days. But until then, you get that slide. Anyway, thanks for joining us today. Again, we're going to be we're going to keep going on Flexbox. We talked the last couple weeks, actually not last week, so I was out on a trip, but a couple weeks before that, talking about Flexbox containers, talking about Flexbox items. And now we're going to take what we learned with that, because we've basically gone through all the different things you can do with Flexbox, or at least all the properties of Flexbox. And let's try and do something with it, like real life use case. Like, how would I use this today? Because a lot of people keep thinking about Flexbox as, we're never going to be able to use it because, it's not supported by IE8 yet and like IE8. But if you have those problems, like even IE9 doesn't support Flexbox yet. So how do you deal with those? Some of those things you might be thinking we can't use Flexbox yet. I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. So we're going to go through a quick little demo of how you can use Flexbox today that will have great fallback for IE9 and obviously works great in IE10 and so on and so far down the road, and anything else that's modern and good. So let's go ahead and dive into it. I tweeted out a link to this Sassmeister. It's also on the YouTube page if you're at that, actually looking at the YouTube event. It should be down there, or just check out Twitter at SassBites. I just tweeted it right before this episode. Anyway, so thank you, Sassmeister, for having live reload. I was having problems elsewhere. Anyway, so what we're going to do today is we are going to take this nice little list of dinosaurs, because of course, who doesn't love some good dinosaurs? Make this into a nice little 3-column display that our designers are going to love. So I've got some real basic marks. That's really not the point, though. You can take a look at it. That's how I would like to do. That's how I would do it. Also, I've got some styles down here at the bottom that kind of make it pretty, but that stuff is irrelevant for what we're doing. It's really just the prettiness. So one thing you can do with this, we want a 3-column layout. So one thing we could do is we could simply go in here and give it width and float all of these guys. And that works fine. This looks just perfectly fine for normal, like really ugly looking stuff. It's readable, right? You can ingest it instead of this big tall thing. But the designer in you is going, I really wish all of those, those columns could be the same height. That would be really, really great. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's use Flexbox to do that. Now, here's the fun thing. It's pretty easy. If we use display flex on the example, basically the container that goes around all this. So we've got a div of example, and then there's cards inside of it, and then the content side of it. If all we do is say display flex on that parent container, the default, I'm forgetting what the term is now. Whether it stretches or flex start, flex end, the default is to stretch. So the flex items will automatically stretch to fill the parent container. So you see we already have, just by hitting display flex on this, we already have equal height columns. That's all we had to do. Seriously, it was that simple. You have equal height columns. Now again, you're not going to have equal height columns on IE9. IE9 is going to look like this. But again, IE9's okay with that. They're used to things being ugly and slow and horrible because they're on IE9 and they hate their life. But for everyone else that actually can use Flexbox, they're going to get this, which is a really, really great fallback without really any work at all. One thing I do want to point out here, I've got my width set. I also have a flex basis. I can actually turn off these floats, the width and the float. And you'll see that's kind of wacky. I'll explain why that is, but it's long story. I give a flex basis, which will basically do the exact same thing as giving it widths and floats. Because for display flex, the default direction is columns, is a row instead of columns. So it's already floating hypothetically. And if I just give it a flex basis, then everything's gonna have the same starting point. And actually, in this case, it really actually doesn't matter. I can say 10 pixels if I do it right. Oh, it does. Oh, sorry. They don't have grow on it. I'll take that back. I could say 100%. And it'd be exactly the same thing. Good, that one worked. Because they all start at the same width, and then they all collapse down smaller and smaller and smaller until they fit into the parent container. So this really is not completely necessary to have the exact flex basis for that, because flex items always shrink to fill their container. That is, unless you have flex row turned on, or whatever that property is, so you can go in rows. But that's flex basis. So flex basis and width, basically the same thing here. If you want to support IE9, obviously you're going to want to have float and width also turned on. Otherwise, flex and flex basis don't do much. So let's do that. So the other nice thing is you can turn both of them on. Flex basis will override and will completely, make the other ones moot. Like I can go in here and actually say like 10% or something like that. It's not going to actually change anything. Heck, I could even put float right or float none. It actually doesn't change anything. So you can, node. There we go. Nothing. All right. So float left. So the width and the float will give a nice fallback for IE9. Flex basis and all that is perfect for all the flexy stuff. And let's go ahead and tackle the next thing that the designers are cringing at as I just talk away is, what about those buttons? Oh my, the buttons. Like our columns are nice. They're same, all the exact same height, but the buttons don't line up. And they don't line up because, they're not supposed to. They're just content. And content's going to flow from top to bottom. With more text here, there's just going to be more text there. It's just going to push stuff down. And that's just how it's how the web works. Starts at the top and works its way down. But we can change that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to now take a look at one of these cards itself. So this card, is this block right here with 3 items inside of it. So just like we had, the example div up top that has 3 cards in it, our card itself has 3 items inside of it. Now this anchor tag's nested in the div, but so we have 3 children inside the example card. So what we can do is the card is not only a flex item, but the card can also be a flex container. And this is one of those things that took me a little bit to go, oh, okay, now that makes sense, is that one element can both be a flex item and a flex container. Because a flex container doesn't actually change the container itself. It only changes, it's basically a context for the stuff that's inside of it. So what we can do is we can turn on flex for our card. Now, the first thing that's going to do is break everything. Because remember, the default direction for flex is to be in flex rows. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we don't want rows, we want flex columns. So we basically have our example that is a flex row, so 3 items across. And then we have our card, which is a column, 3 items down. So the 3 items in here. Those 3s are confusing, but also all the items in here go down. So far, we haven't changed anything. It looks exactly the same. We're just basically using this as flex items going up and down to specify how these things stack from top to bottom. And what that does is that allows us to make some changes to the individual items inside of that. Now you might say like I didn't change anything, but now with our flex, I can actually change. What is it? Flex. Was it direction? Reverse or flex order. I think that's, I need to actually have these in here. -1, whoops, -1. Flex direction, is it flex order? And then 2, I might have the wrong number. I totally have the wrong thing. You could do flex order. You could, let's see. Should be able to change the text. Let's see, what is that thing? Flex order. It says live Googling right here. I know there's an order property and it's killing me. Is it just order? Oh, it's just order. My gosh, it's not flex. People in the crowd are yelling at me. So I can actually change the order of the text. I could put the text later if I wanted to. I could put it before the image. So these are the kind of things that now this is an actual flex container with these 3 items inside of it. I can do flex type of things. Order just being one of them. So that's very cool. But what we really want here is we want the text field in the center to be as large as it can possibly get, so that the image up top is its normal size, that the text fills up the empty void, and the button at the bottom is left to stay down there. And so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do a flex grow. So typically, flex grow is turned off. So we can see here that this container, even though the actual like image card or example card is this whole thing, it's not being filled up with the content because it's not growing. We're not telling the content to grow. So the content is only as big as it's going to be. What we can do though is we can tell one of the items to flex grow. And we do that by saying flex grow of 1. 1 is basically 100%. It uses up 100% of the extra space. And what that does is that makes this div right here be as big as it can be to fill up its parent container. I could do also that flex grow on the image div, or actually the image itself. I don't even know what this does on an image. Oh, it actually stretches the image. Not what we want. But you can see it does the same thing there. If we put flex grow on the image, it'll actually make the image height change, which obviously does not work for images that you're not supposed to stretch. I can do it on the CTA as well, but the CTA is actually inside. It's actually not it's inside of a div, so that's not going to work. But the point is we can use flex grow. We can put that flex grow on that text area itself, and that text area will grow as large as it can to fill up that space until the entire parent container is filled up. So there we go. We've got a great use case. We've got equal height columns. We've got our little footer section down at the bottom of the page. And typically what I do with this is actually in real life examples, I'll have like a body and a footer, and I'll put everything in body and make the body grow, and then put the footer, then CTA down the footer. That's kind of what I've been doing with the most recent project. But you can do it anyway. You can just see the flex grow, make something grow to fill up the rest of the space, which will obviously push the things below it on down. So there we go. Real life use case of Flexbox, that if you don't have Flexbox enabled, you basically just get this. And that's totally fine. Completely readable, not a broken experience, and it hopefully will make your IE9 people happy. And really, the goal right now with this kind of stuff is, IE9 should still work and be functional. It shouldn't match visually, and we kind of keep beating that into QA of like, we know it looks different. That's totally fine. We expected it, but in all modern browsers, it looks way better. So that's what we're doing. We're doing some equal height columns, using a little bit of Flexbox, and Flexbox on the elements inside the actual Flex items is where the power comes in there. We'll probably take a couple more weeks and explore a couple more options. I was thinking maybe doing like cool navigation, or maybe like a sidebar navigation, those kind of things. Some neat stuff you can do with that Flexbox really gives you the power for. Might not have as good fallback, but certainly with more modern applications, you can find that really useful. So hope you enjoyed this. Check out youtube.com/sassbytes for our previous episodes. Check the YouTube, this actual YouTube page to get the Sass Master link. And I don't think I have anything going on next week. So hopefully we will see you then. So let's see if I can find this stop streaming button as I drop my mouse. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we might even have music next week. We'll see. But stop by next week. We'll talk more about Flexbox. Later.